when Ubisoft released Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege on December 1st, 2015. The title was thrust into the already crowded market of first-person shooters. Counter-Strike: Global Offensive was nearing the peak of its popularity and was holding strong as one of the premier esports titles. Call of Duty: Black Ops 3 had been released 1 month prior and would go on to become 2015's best-selling game, and Blizzard's Overwatch was slated for release in the near future. Despite these obstacles to overcome, Rainbow Six Siege has grown into a massive mainstream success, both in sales and esports viewership, and has fostered a robust esports scene, one of the biggest in the world. Here's how Ubisoft made it happen. Rainbow Six Siege is much more complex than it may seem on the surface. At its most basic level, the game is built around 2 teams of 5 players, either attacking or defending a location. Whichever team is able to accomplish their objective or kill all enemy operators in a round is crowned the winner. What set the title apart from other games in the FPS genre is the variety of ways that players can approach each round. Droning, reinforcing walls, opening hatches, breaking reinforcements, rappelling up or down buildings, defending choke points, setting and destroying obstacles, and scouting with mounted cameras. Not only that, but Rainbow Six Siege boasted a huge roster of operators, each with their own unique abilities that has continued to grow with each new update. To Jeffrey Evil Waffle Hayworth, the continued addition of new operators has had nothing but a positive impact on the game.
If the game didn't have that many new ops from when it first came out, I think it might have even died, because I thought, personally, I think the game kind of becomes very stale without the addition of new operators, because the meta can become very repetitive. You know, they have to add new operators to change things up. At the same time, I think the more we go on, adding 8 new operators every year might hurt the game on a competitive level, because, you know, they might run out of ideas at one point, or the ideas become more and more strange, like the operators that come out might not make sense anymore.
Despite concerns around new operators being unbalanced or tedious to play, Ubisoft has learned from past mistakes and made an effort to listen to their community.
But most of them have been really good. There hasn't been a Lion 2.0 yet, and that's good. Lion kind of like plagued Pro League for a little while. I mean, he got quarantined for a long time because he was just like extremely unbalanced, and that was at the time where Ubisoft didn't really like balance things as quickly, and the player base actually like lost a good amount of its like daily players because of it. So after like fixing that and like starting to like balance the things more effectively and efficiently, the game's just been in a much better state. But with new ops and stuff, I feel like there really hasn't been one that's just like, oh my gosh, the game's completely just ruined again, you know?
That's Alexander Yeti Lawson, who first began playing Siege on Xbox One and has since gone on to compete in Ubisoft and ESL's Pro League, as well as other LAN events.
What got me interested in playing Siege competitively was just watching like a Pro League match back on Xbox. I just thought it'd be really cool to like play professional video games. I knew the game didn't really like bring in a lot of money at the time, but just the idea of like playing a professional video game, I just knew that the game would go somewhere. I had faith in it, and that really made me want to start playing competitive. So I just started playing like Go Force and stuff on Xbox and just trying to, you know, achieve Pro League.
Ubisoft has used this pool of professional players, who are some of their most vocal fans, to their advantage, often bringing players in to test new features and help make decisions. This is in stark contrast to developers of other titles, like Epic, who have focused on developing for their casual audience and have avoided input from pros.
Having been to the workshops and given my input, I think that Ubisoft does listen to the professional players and their input that they give, but they're not like, they'll pick certain parts of what they like. They're not going to completely listen to the professional players, and because they also, you know, they have to balance it for everyone, which is a difficult task, and I don't think everybody understands that it's difficult to do.
They use basically like play tests where, you know, people get to try and test the game, and they'll sit there with the devs and they'll give like their thoughts, opinions, concerns, and you know, the devs take that into consideration and bring it to the table with, I guess, higher ups in Ubisoft or whoever, you know, they'll see what they can do, and they'll patch it a little bit. They won't just completely like nerf the operator, because if they nerf the operator, they won't get enough like feedback on it to fix it. So every operator has to be broken at first.
Another way that Ubisoft has managed to thrive in the modern age of esports is their hands-on approach to running tournaments. In March of 2016, Ubisoft and ESL launched their first season of Pro League, which was held on both PC and Xbox One. Xavier Marquis, Rainbow Six Siege's creative director at Ubisoft Montreal, had this to say about the Pro League's formation. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege was built from the ground up with competition in mind. We are excited to partner with ESL, one of the biggest names in esports, to deliver a league for Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege fans to compete and enjoy the game they love. Considering that the game had only been out for 4 months, such a large-scale weekly league on multiple platforms was certainly ambitious. The game was new, and even the pros weren't safe from bugs and glitches. However, despite the odd hiccup here and there, Ubisoft's new league looked to be one of the best on the market. And that's something to be celebrated. Very few developers have kickstarted professional league play so early in a game's lifespan. The Overwatch League's inaugural season didn't properly start until the beginning of 2018, over a year after the game's initial release. Some titles, like Valve's Dota 2 and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, have never had a proper league system run by the game's developers. In May 2016, just 3 months after the beginning of their inaugural season and 6 months after the game's launch, Rainbow Six Siege had its first Pro League champions, Pentasports on PC and Excellence Gaming on Xbox One. Each team took home $25,000. In the same year, SK Gaming won $500,000 at Counter-Strike's major in Cologne, and Wings Gaming secured more than $9 million at Dota 2's The International.
There weren't that many people paying attention to it. You know, there wasn't any like big names in it, big orgs involved or anything of the sort. The scene hadn't matured. Like, I think you had to qualify for Pro League every 3 months. Nobody was really established at the time. There were a few names that are still around now, but I think a lot of the players from back then, there's not that many that are still around now. And so I think the scene has matured a lot from when it first started.
From the 3rd to the 5th of February 2017, in Montreal, Rainbow Six Siege fans watched as their first world champions were crowned on PC and Xbox One. The winners, Continuum and Elevate, each won $50,000. It would be the last time that Ubisoft officially supported Xbox One as a competitive platform for Pro League and the Six Invitational, saying, quote, "Running 2 leagues simultaneously with full parity on different platforms has been challenging. We had an exclusive partnership set up with Microsoft prior to the launch of Year 1, in which we were financially supported to provide the Pro League on Xbox. Our agreement with Microsoft Xbox has come to an end. It was a difficult decision to come to, but we have decided to move from a 2-platform Pro League to a single, PC-focused Pro League."
Xbox had a lot more teams than PC did at the time, because even not being on PC, I knew that there was a lot. Like, there'd be 100, 150 teams, even 200, 300 participating in a Go for on console, but on PC there'd be like less than 50. And I think it was a lot more competitive on console. There was just like the massive player base was on console, just because console's a lot cheaper to have rather than a PC. And to run this game on computer is pretty expensive. So it was flourishing for sure. It was really competitive too. It kind of reminded me of like a Call of Duty-esque scene. In my opinion, the game is meant for PC. The way it just feels, it's kind of weird, but it is definitely made for computer gaming. It was a little ugly to watch on console. So from a viewer perspective, I think like PC as a whole is a lot more enjoyable to everybody. The aiming is a lot more crisp and clean. You're not like potatoing everywhere like it was on console. And then it just runs a lot better. Like playing this game with, you know, your graphic sliders and the FOV, and you can lean without aiming. All those things make the game aesthetically more pleasing.
The decision to stop providing esports support for Xbox One cemented PC as the platform to play on for anyone who hoped to compete at a high level. The conclusion of the first Six Invitational also gave rise to the first superstars of professional Siege. Continuum was signed by Evil Geniuses in late 2017, which bolstered public perception of the game. And over the years, Rainbow Six Siege's sales numbers have continued to grow. The game's concurrent player count on Steam, which had not surpassed 45,000 since the game's launch, began to climb in January 2017, and quickly shot up past 65,000. World-renowned esports organizations like Team Liquid, FaZe Clan, Rogue, and Counterlogic Gaming saw the potential in Rainbow Six Siege's esports scene and acquired rosters to compete in the next 6 Invitational in 2018. 2017 also saw Pro League expand to the LATAM and the APAC regions, and began the process of refining its broadcast schedule. Seasons got longer, more games were added, and teams played more regularly. In 2017, games were broadcast on Mondays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and seasons ran for about 2 months. Nowadays, viewers can tune in and watch Pro League almost every day of the week, with each season lasting 6 full months.
I didn't like how when I was in Pro League with WBG, it was basically like you'd play 2 games, and if you lost both those games, you're in a relegation match. And then if you win 1 game, you stay in Pro League. I didn't like that format. I don't think it was competitive enough. I like the format now where it's like a 14-week season. There's a bunch of games. It does suck that they're best of ones with no overtime. I feel like there could definitely be an overtime, but other than that, it's a lot better than what it was.
Ubisoft continued their aggressive update strategy and brought new features and operators into the game 4 times a year. But constantly adding new content in means more bugs that slip under the radar, and professional matches continued to be plagued with issues, culminating in the delay of all Pro League matches in 2018.
I think having bugs every season is obviously like a red flag, because the more it goes on, the more people notice and the more people get fed up with it. Obviously, you don't want to delay Pro League every season, because then it just kind of shows that the game isn't meant to be in esports, or it can have side effects, like spectators might not be interested in anymore. So I think that's one thing that has to be fixed going forward.
Pro League's current schedule is generally popular with players and esports organizations. Brands can be confident that their team will play at least 14 games during the regular season at the same time slot each week. Broadcast times are easy to remember for fans, and each region has a chance to attend each season's LAN event to win money and increase their prestige. The Brazilian Team Liquid's Season 7 win was hugely symbolic for Latin American fans, and the Japanese squad, Nora Rengo, is a consistent fan favorite at international events. Despite Ubisoft's inclusion of operators hailing from countries all around the world, Rainbow Six Siege has only become an international esport in the past couple of years. While some esports fan bases lament the long-time dominance of certain regions, Siege fans have crowned champions from almost every region currently competing. Rainbow Six Siege's profile in esports has risen steadily over the years, from the first 6 Invitational, which seated about 300 people, to selling out Place Bell in Montreal. The many improvements made to the game's systems and mechanics have allowed its competitive scene to flourish and become a tour de force in a crowded market where titles are constantly competing for viewership. The intermingling between Siege's esports and casual markets is most prominent when Ubisoft announces new operations during their tournament broadcasts. Siege's most recent update, Ember Rise, was detailed at the Raleigh Major, and includes changes that will impact both casual and competitive players. However, despite the game's growth and many positive changes, that doesn't mean that players don't have a wish list of things they want to see.
I think they should change their best of 1 format, which is technically a best of 2 format because every team plays each other twice. I think they should have a best of 2 every night. Like, instead of teams just playing a best of 1, they play each other twice in the same night.
My thoughts on the current format is I like the 14-week season. I don't mind the best of 1s. I do think that ties and not having overtime, like having the match be decided right then, right there, is not as competitive as most would like. I speak for most pros when I say like they would love to see overtime, because tying is kind of but when you look at the overall scheme of the league, like 14 weeks, and if you tie with a team, you're still getting a point. So it does add like this little bit of like competitiveness to it.
One of my biggest hopes, I think, is having more than 4 major LANs in a year, which is, in my opinion, not enough. Like, looking at other competitive titles such as Dota or Counter-Strike, they have many more. Personally, I don't necessarily like count the smaller, like the minors or the dream hacks as big LANs. I think we need more of them, and we need more teams at the Pro League season finals too, because right now we just have 8 teams. I think that's not enough. I think more teams, like, we would need 16 teams at least.
As Rainbow Six Siege heads into 2020, there are many things to look forward to. Phase 2 of Pro League's pilot program began in September and will run until May of next year. Launched in 2018, The pilot program is Rainbow Six's first revenue-sharing initiative that aims to develop a sustainable environment for organizations in the global esports program. By collaborating with partnered esports brands, the pilot program aims to bring support to the teams and players within the ecosystem and to help lead Rainbow Six Esports into the next phase of its evolution as an esports title.
From a competitive aspect, I think the pilot program is really dope. I think it brings in a lot of like really large orgs, and that gives a lot of like a lot more eyes to the game, like a lot more attention to like the game as a whole.
While these changes are certainly positive for brands that are accepted into the program, some organizations like Lestream ended up cutting their players' contracts upon learning that they would not be accepted into the revenue sharing program. Esports right now is a generally unprofitable model, especially for smaller organizations, and the fact that only 14 teams are accepted into the pilot program will ultimately limit the ability for some organizations to justify expenditures. At the end of the day, Siege's pilot program ends up favoring larger, more established brands like Evil Geniuses, G2 Esports, Team Liquid, and Cloud9, instead of smaller organizations that would benefit most from additional revenue. However, politics aside, the future of Rainbow Six Siege looks bright for both casual fans of the game and those who tune into Pro League on a weekly basis. As Siege's esports scene has grown and become more stable, new stars and veterans alike are able to make a living playing the game they love and can be assured that Siege will continue to enjoy support from Ubisoft long into the future.
Looking back at it, the game had just it's such a like original, rich concept. It's not overcomplicated. It's very simple. It's 5 versus 5. It's a team versus team. You know, you can break walls, like just blow stuff up, so you get that Battlefield type-esque, and then you get the FPS enjoyment of like, I almost want to say a CS:GO kind of Call of Duty mixture, just because like the way the damage from guns works. But something about the game between its aesthetics and its like actual competitive play is it's enjoyable all around. It's very hard to dislike this game unless you just solo queue all the time.